why are humans their own worst enemy? Like that's essentially why we're here, right? Because you're trying to stop or help humans not be their own worst enemy. Like, no one's got a gun to my head saying, you've got to eat that Mars bar, Mark, or you've got to have that 5th pint. But we do it. And there's like, you could probably put all human existential problems down to the fact that we're just shit at controlling ourselves, basically. And why is that? And how do we try to improve on that?
What a question, huh? You're asking me that. Why are humans their own worst enemy?
Well, of the two people sat across this table, you know why.
I don't think
More
I do.
than I do.
There's tons of reasons why.
Go on then.
Why do people do things they don't want to do? Is that what we're asking?
Because you do want to do it in the moment.
Yeah, people do things they don't want to do for loads of reasons.
To escape.
I don't think if I had to pick one, most people are just fucked. I don't mean like...
Yeah.
I mean, just exhausted.
Right. You don't have the willpower to...
Yeah. Most motivation issues are energy issues.
Are they?
Most willpower issues are energy issues. How do you feel when you're tired? How do you feel when you had a long day and your kids haven't slept?
Yesterday I was...
You just go, I'll have a beer, I'll do that. You just reach for...
Yeah.
And I think you reach for habitual things.
Yesterday I was shattered because I went to bed really late the 2 nights previous, and all I wanted to do was have a beer and eat chocolate. The two things we're trying.
But is that something you've always done before?
Well, not because I've not done it because I've never thought, oh, I'm tired, I'll have a beer.
No, but is that a go-to for you?
Yeah, that's my vice, chocolate and beer, yeah.
Yeah, so it's for a lot of us, it's a habit, isn't it?
It's just habit, yeah. But it's interesting that on the day when I was definitely knackered, I thought about it way more than when I'm not tired.
Yeah, I think, again, if you look around, we are chronically stressed individuals now. Most people are chronically stressed. We live in a fast-paced world. There's, you compare the world that we live in to the world my dad grew up in. His world was much smaller, wasn't it? Be honest, my dad's 74, it's a smaller world. He didn't know what was going on across the world. He didn't know, what Frank Sinatra was doing on a weekend, did he? On his Instagram stories. Can you imagine that, though? What an era that would have been.
Well, that's the thing, is that those people wouldn't have survived because you couldn't get away with what they were doing.
No.
And they wouldn't have been able to have the lifestyles.
They wouldn't have been recording that, would they?
No.
But I suppose what I'm trying to say is we live in much faster paced worlds. Most people are chronically stressed all the time about life and rushing and getting places and worries and houses and money and inflation and all these things. And sometimes I think we reach to things that just make us feel better in the moment.
In the short term, yeah.
It's like, it makes me feel better in the moment. And a lot of that is habitual. I had somebody ask me the other day, so they said, I self-sabotage. Why do I do that? I'm like, it's okay. Well, what does that look like? So what do you mean? Well, I tell myself I'm not good enough. Yeah. I said, oh, brilliant. So what do you do when you tell yourself that? Well, I do this. And that's the thing that's important. It's like the action.
Right.
I'm like, so you do this and this and this. Yeah, great. Well, what could you do instead of that? Like literally, what can you do instead of that? You've got to stop doing that. It doesn't matter how much work you do on the I'm not good enough belief. If you keep reinforcing it by taking the action. Yeah. But we're very blasé, aren't we? I overthink. What do you do when you overthink? Oh, I don't know. Well, pay attention. I don't do anything. No, you probably do. What do you do when you overthink? What do you physically do? There's always an action somewhere, especially with sabotage. And I know people say sabotage doesn't exist. But if we look at the definition of sabotage is, say we look at this definition, sabotage is an action that takes me away from what I want, then it does in that moment. So why do we take actions that actually don't align with what we want? There's loads of reasons that people do that, isn't there? Do you know what I'm saying? But ultimately, it's the action that's got to be worked on.
Not the thought process behind it.
Yeah, there's an element of that. But we kind of spend all the, if you look at a lot of personal development, it's all around the thought process, isn't it? You've got to understand that. You've got to understand that. But you can work on those limiting beliefs and why you're not good enough and all this a lot. But if you keep then not really changing the physical action of
reaction to it,
then it's going to keep reinforcing that pattern. So it's like, how do I stop that? you can't just say, well, just stop it. But it's like, I would always have, I realize we're just on a tangent about sabotage, but the one thing I always do to myself is just little outs all the time. So if it's like, if I do something, if I do the thing, if I, then I. Like I have an action on the back end of it that almost like nullifies it. I'll give you an example in a minute.
Okay.
Or if I've had a shit day and I feel tired, if I feel like having a beer, I do this instead. Like I have that as a rule. If I feel like having a beer, I do this instead.
Right.
So it's kind of like, if I feel like doing that, here's what I'm going to do.
So you don't take the whole reward away, you just replace it with something else.
Yeah, I use I suppose what I'm doing there is I'm using that, that like, God, I've had a long day, I could do with a beer. I'm using that as like a trigger.
Yeah.
And I'm going, that means I have to do this instead.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So instead of having that, what I do is I go out and I go for a walk and listen to some music.
Okay.
I just take the dog for a walk. Because by the time I've taken the dog for a walk and come back,
Yeah.
I know that I'm probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I've replaced that initial thing.
But it requires movement. Does it always require
No,
some
I
kind
don't
of
think so.
physical action?
Obviously, I've slowed my drinking down because of my health.
Yeah.
Not that it was causing that.
Yeah.
But I know that if I walk the dog around the British camp, I will go to the pub.
Right. So you
Because
don't
that's
do
how
that.
habits are built, really.
Yeah.
One leads to the other.
Yeah.
And that's probably, you go, well, practice some self-control. And very often I can go, okay, I won't.
Yeah.
But I'll just break the loop. I'd be like, right, I'm going to walk. I could really do not have a drink tonight. I'm going to walk the dog somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not going to walk the dog around the golf course
Yeah.
and then drive all the way to the pub. It ain't going to happen.
Is that what they call pattern interrupt?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Right.
And obviously it's a sign of how much your environment shapes your behaviour. Environmental cues all the time. But I suppose we're talking about why it comes back to, people talking about sabotage and all the rest of it, why we're our own worst enemies. But I think a lot of it's practical. Like I'm big on beliefs and thinking and all the rest of it. And I'm not just an individual who's like, just don't do it or just grit in or,
Yeah.
but there has got to be an element of
Yeah, otherwise
both.
there'd be no change. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to go do that, I have give myself an out. It's more skillful management than just don't do it or beat myself up because I did it. So what happens if I do it? You know, generally I do it and I feel shit about myself.
Straight after.
So if I know if I do it,
Yeah.
then if I do it, I do this after. Like I do something that makes me, that's healthier, say, or so I kind of attach a good habit onto the bad one. I'm just trying to change it all the time. But there's a million reasons. No one's going to answer, I don't think, why human beings do things that don't help them. But I know a huge reason, in my experience, is most of us are really tired and chronically stressed. And that causes you to do a lot of stupid shit to make yourself feel better.
And you think that's just part of being in the modern world?
I think it's outdated skills for the time we live in.
Right. Or maybe we need to update our skills for the time we live in.